Hello, and welcome to another edition of Astronomy for Everyone. My name is Dr. Timothy Day, and it's my distinct pleasure to be the guest host once again this year, and that's because our regular host, Don Glazier, is seated immediately to my left. Hello, Don.
Hi, Tim.
Good to have you as our expert guest once again.
Looking forward to wrapping up our series on sky lore and mythology.
What season are we into now?
This will be winter. This is the last of the four that we're doing to cover all the seasons.
All right. And what would you like to start with?
Well, let's begin with Orion. It's the central figure of the nighttime sky in winter, and so we'll begin there. We can see the constellation as we would see it in the nighttime sky, and we'll begin with the Greek stories, and they actually have two. Now, the first one involves Orion and the goddess Diana. She was the sister of Apollo, so she drove the chariot of the moon across the sky. That was her job, but because she was so enamored with Orion, she started shirking her responsibilities. This didn't sit well with Apollo, so one day Orion is swimming out in the ocean. He points to Orion. It was just a speck in the water, and he said to his sister, "Bet you can't hit that." Well, she took the bait, shot the arrow. Later, she sees his body wash up on the shore. She's beside herself with grief. She goes to Zeus, and Zeus places him in the sky.
This was the consolation prize to Diana for having accidentally shot Orion.
Exactly, exactly. The other story involves Orion and the scorpion. Now, Orion, being a great hunter, boasted that he would kill all of the animals on the earth. This upset Gaia, who was the mother goddess of the earth, and so to keep him from doing that, she placed a scorpion along the path that he would walk along as he went hunting. As he walked by, the scorpion stung him on the heel. He died, and to avoid any further trouble between the two, Zeus placed Orion on one side of the sky and the scorpion on the other. So that's why we see Orion during the winter and the scorpion during the summer.
I had never heard that story, and Orion is my favorite constellation from the time when I was just a little kid growing up. So that's wonderful to learn that. Now, Diana was, you said, the sister of Apollo, and Apollo was the sun god.
Right,
Is that
he
right?
drove the chariot of the sun. His sister drove the chariot
So the
of
moon and the sun, respectively.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Now, we move along to another cultural story. This is the Native Americans of the Pacific Northwest. And they saw him as the harpooner of heaven. And he paddled a canoe, and he owned the fog, which is prevalent in the Pacific Northwest. And he kept the fog in a box. Now, he also hunted an otter. And this otter escaped from the harpooner, flew up into the sky, and became the Pleiades, according to this Native American tribe from the Pacific Northwest.
So people were making do with the things in their environment or their world that they were most familiar with.
Exactly.
So the Greeks knew of scorpions, and scorpions they put up there, and the people from the Northwest Pacific tribes in North America, they knew about fog, or they knew about sea otters.
Exactly.
And so it's fog and sea otters that are in the storyline.
We move next to Australia, the Aboriginal peoples that inhabit. Now, there's two different stories about Orion in Australia. We'll start with the northern tribes. They saw Orion as a canoe, and they called it Jopan. Now, the three belt stars were three brothers in their boat fishing. Well, they had been fishing for quite some time, hadn't caught anything, and were getting very hungry. Now, to complicate things, there was a certain sacred fish that they could not eat. Well, one of the brothers caught one. He was supposed to put it back, but he was so hungry, he tempted fate.
He made the decision to eat it.
And he ate the fish.
Yeah.
Well, the sun woman sees this, and she sends a water spout that carries the three brothers and their boat up into the sky. And that's where they remain to this day. And so you could see the three brothers in the boat, and Betelgeuse and Rigel are the bow and the stern.
The top and the bottom, right.
And
boom,
M42 is the sacred fish.
Ah, okay. So that's why we've got the image of the fish at the top of what we're looking at there.
Exactly.
And that's an example, once again, of people getting a divine gift that is only partially freely given by the gods.
Exactly.
And then there's a consequence for that.
Exactly.
There's a, okay.
And then, but for the southern tribes of Australia, they see it more as an image like we do. They call it Bayami, the creator god. Now, once you get south of the equator, Orion is upside down.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And so
On his head.
they attributed this to the fact that he tripped on the horizon as he was setting, which is why he's upside down.
Oh, that's wonderful. I've never heard a story that explains why that character would be upside down if you took it to be a person.
Exactly, exactly. So very different from the northern peoples. What's also interesting, in the Greek stories, he has either a shield or a lion skin, and then a club or a sword. But
Right.
for the Australians, he has the shield and a boomerang.
And again, that's a cultural specific reference. It's something that they knew. I don't know how long Aboriginal peoples have been making use of boomerangs, but I would probably guess thousands of years. Would that be a safe?
I
Tens
wouldn't
of
be
thousands
surprised.
even?
I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised in the least.
Okay.
Next, we'll shift over to Samaria in the Middle East.
Still talking about Orion.
Orion. We're still
Okay.
with Orion, but for the Sumerians, they see him as Gilgamesh, and we've talked about him.
He's another hero, a heroic
the
figure.
epic hero, exactly. And he was known as the light of heaven. We can.
This is Gilgamesh to the left in this image that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he's wrestling the bull. Now, in Babylon, he was known as a shepherd, the shepherd of Anu, who is Anu was the ruler of heaven.
Okay.
So that rounds out the.
He's got the bull upside down in that image, doesn't he?
I-
Gilgamesh is looking nice and powerful with
He
his
is.
fine
Yep,
curls
he-
and
yep,
his
he
beard.
is.
Okay.
So next we're going to go to Taurus.
New constellation, Taurus the bull.
Exactly. And
Next constellation. I
the
should
next
say.
constellation that we have, Taurus. We can see.
There we go.
Yep.
And those are the horns going up to the top stars,
Right,
left
and
and
the
right.
V shape of the Hyades that forms the face.
The Hyades is an open cluster of stars.
Exactly.
Okay, and you
exactly.
can kind of see them bunched up there. They're very pretty.
Now, for the Greeks, their story goes that Zeus disguised himself as a bull. He abducts Europa, who is the daughter of the king of Tyre, which is located in the western Mediterranean.
Okay.
Now, he carries her across the sea, and they land on the island of Crete. And we have an image of that, of an ancient Greek vase showing the bull. There we go.
Oh, there we are. Yeah.
Yes, with,
and that
Europa.
classic red or yellow or orange background with the black,
Black figure, yep.
and then finally white outline.
Classic ancient Greek. And they land on the island of Crete. And this story is attributed to the cult of the bull that was so popular on the island of Crete and Minos.
The bull, and the Minotaur, and the labyrinth, wasn't it?
You also have that
Okay.
story as well.
Yeah,
Yep,
all right.
Yep, you sure do. In Babylon, it was known as the Bull of Heaven. Ishtar, important goddess of Babylon, sent the bull to destroy Gilgamesh because he had spurned her affection. So the woman scorned, as they used to say. And so there we have Ishtar.
Ishtar is the
On the
right,
right.
or on the right figure.
On
So
the right.
she's the one with the almost, it looks like wings and scepters coming out
Exactly.
in the back, and certainly looking very powerful, very royal. 1 foot up, vanquishing.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Now, also in Egypt, around 2500 BCE, it was seen as the sign of a sacrifice, the renewal, actually. The spring equinox was in Taurus back then.
So things
And-
coming round again.
Exactly.
Recognizing patterns.
In Northern Europe, the Druids held their Tauric religious festivals.
Tauric meaning from Taurus. Based
exactly.
in Taurus.
Exactly. And the 'Buddhists believe that Buddha was born when the full moon was in Taurus.
Ah, okay. That's one I hadn't heard before. There's not a lot of story, at least not in our culture, that talks about Buddhists and what they saw in the sky. So I'm fascinated to have you provide that little tidbit for us.
Glad to do it. Now, lastly, with Taurus, we have in Rome and Persia, Mithricism, a religious cult, if you will, or
Okay.
religion, depending on your point of view. Here we can see
And again, the
Mithra,
bull, right?
again with the bull. And it was a very popular cult. It was brought back to Rome by the soldiers who were stationed in Persia and in the Middle East.
So they
and
picked it up on their journeys out to conquer peoples or whatever, conquest, empire.
Exactly, and it was an early rival to the Christian church.
So again, that's an example of a society interfacing with another society, and they sort of assimilate each other as
Exactly.
take the elements that are the most vital to each, perhaps, and there's a sort of a contest of cultures, and then you get the heavenly hash, so to speak.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That's a great start to this show's start this evening, and I want to take a little break. We'll get Steve telling us today's term, and then we'll be back with more.
Exactly. Looking forward to it.
The term of the month is Fekir Telescope. This is the original telescope from the Cranbrook Institute of Science. The eyepiece goes down at this end, and down here with all of these big wheels, that is the drive. This is a tracking telescope because you can do photography with this. And above here, there's a photography mount system. The objective lens goes up at the top. This is a very long scope. It's maybe an f/15. This cost $3,500 in 1928, which is about $51,000 today. Again, the term of the month is Fekir Telescope.
Hello once again, and welcome back to Astronomy for Everyone. I remain Dr. Timothy Day, and my guest is still Don Glazier.
All right, Tim, let's get back into it.
Please do.
All right. Well, next we're going to start with the constellation of Gemini,
Excellent.
the twins. Now, the Greek story is of two brothers. One is Pollux, who is immortal, and Castor, who is mortal. Now, they're both sons of Zeus, but they have different mothers, which is a whole other story.
Ah, okay.
Yes. So, Castor was killed in battle. And because the brothers loved each other so much, Pollux gave up half of his immortality to his brother so they could spend eternity together, knowing both life and death together. We can see them next to each other. Now, they were also associated with the story of Jason and the Argonauts.
And tell me that one, please.
Well, Jason was in search of the Golden Fleece, which was identified as the constellation of Aries the Ram.
A fleece is like a wool skin?
Skin, yes.
Yeah, something to keep you warm?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, in Buddhist culture, the twins are actually seen as a woman with a cord. Something totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in Persia, Phoenicia, Egypt, and even in India, it's seen as two of something. Not necessarily two men, but two of something, such as peacocks, gazelles, or even sprouting plants.
Okay. So they keep that theme of a split, a dichotomy, two things together, alive, even if it's not necessarily the story of two boys
Exactly.
or two men.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, Gemini is also associated with the phenomenon known as St. Elmo's fire.
How so? And tell me what St. Elmo's fire is.
Well, St. Elmo's fire is actually a plasma, an ionized gas, that's caused by an imbalance in electrical charges, typically during a thunderstorm. And we see it gathering on things like tips of steeples or around the masts of ships.
So hot, yes, like lightning, but
It may not get as hot
sticks
as
around.
lightning.
Okay.
Right, but it's an imbalance in an electrical charge.
All right.
And pilots have reported seeing it there in the picture. We can see at the tips of the rigging.
It's almost like Christmas lights all the way up the side. And
It does have that appearance.
So those are balls of static electricity that the ship has somehow managed to gather to itself.
Right. Again, the imbalance in charge, protons moving away from their electrons, releasing energy.
And how long do those stay around for? Do you know?
You know, I don't. It's a phenomenon that sort of comes and goes. So,
Okay.
but that's Gemini.
That's
is associated
extraordinary.
with
It's
that.
very pretty. Thank
Yeah.
you. So that goes along with Gemini.
Now, down in Tasmania, south of Australia, the Gemini is seen as two ancestor men who bring fire to Earth. And they're seen as they walk along the heavenly pathway, the Milky Way.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Now, to the Aboriginal Australians, different story. The story of Kulu and the Lizard Men. And I've been waiting all year to tell this story.
I can't
This is
wait.
a great story. The Lizard Men are known as the Wadi Kujara, okay, as a group. There is a group of pursued women, the Pleiades, being chased by Kulu. Now, to save the women, the Lizard Men throw their boomerangs at him and kill him. His blood drains out, and as he rises up into the sky, he becomes the moon. The phenomenon we see is the moon, when it first appears, is very red.
It's blood red, isn't
and then
it?
as it rises,
Oh, I love it.
it's white. Yeah.
That's very elegant. And I've never heard a story that I'm aware of where the color of the rising moon being red or setting has ever been explained before or built into a mythology. That's really pretty unique.
It is. It is.
Tasmania. Yeah.
Oh, no, Tasmania was the two ancestors.
The two ancestors.
This is in Australia itself.
Thank you.
Okay. From here, we move on to Sirius, the dog star in the constellation of Canis Major.
So this is
Big
the
dog.
brightest star proper by itself.
Yes, the brightest
Okay.
star in the constellation and about the brightest star in the northern hemisphere.
And, yeah.
Now, for the Greeks, it's rising. For them, that's what made the summer so hot. Because when it rises in mid-July, that's the hottest time of the year.
It's the brightest
and so
star.
they assumed that that brightness added to the heat of the sun and made those the dog days of summer.
Doesn't. Oh,
And
okay.
that's where we get it.
Another connection. I never
Exactly.
knew that one either.
Exactly. Now, for the Egyptians, the star was Isis, the wife of Osiris, whom we talked about earlier. As Orion.
Yeah.
And there were temples built to her, and they were aligned in such a way that they would catch the first light as the star rose in mid-July. And this also signaled the approaching flooding of the Nile. So they had advance warning to get everything up to higher ground.
So the
in advance of the
Egyptians
flood.
knew, the farmers knew when you started to see Osiris
Mm-hmm.
making its appearance, time to think about planting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And was also seen as an eagle by the people of Aboriginal Australia and in the Cook Islands in the South Pacific. It was a folk tale about Aldebaran and the Pleiades. There we have Egypt again. We've got the horns and the star with Isis. But with the Aboriginal Australians, we have some Aboriginal art that shows the Pleiades along with Aldebaran. There's the Dendera zodiac that we've seen before and figures prominently in the Dendera zodiac as well.
Goodness,
with
yeah.
Isis.
That's a wonderful image to go with that. And then finally,
The Pleiades.
please.
The Pleiades, seen by the Greeks as the seven daughters of Atlas, being chased by Orion, placed in the sky to protect them. And also, in the Aboriginal Australian culture, there are actually seven sisters who possessed fire. Each of them had a live coal on the end of their digging stick. And the crow,
Oh, that's a marvelous image.
the crow, through trickery, stole the coals, put them in a kangaroo skin pouch, brought them to Earth to bring fire to man.
So their version of Prometheus taking fire from heaven.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful way to take us out.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Now, there are a lot of similarities that I've noticed in putting this show together over the last year. And it's interesting that so many of the stories are very similar amongst people who are separated by geography and time.
So not only in different parts of the globe itself, but hundreds or even millennia years difference in occurrence.
Exactly. And it's, you know,
You wouldn't think they would have much to share with each other, right?
right, the
They're
days before the
Eastern
internet.
Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere, thousands of years before Christ or after or whatever.
Right. No fax machines.
No fax
internet.
machines.
No.
Okay.
You can't phone a friend with this information.
They're not carving it in rocks and sharing them.
That's right. And you see these certain stories. The pursued women, the Pleiades.
Right.
Uh,
Stealing fire. You had mentioned
stealing
that.
fire. Yep, we talked about that. Also, the damsel in distress, St. George
Rescuing.
and the dragon, Andromeda and Perseus.
The gods punishing men for daring to steal something that was godlike.
Exactly, exactly. And so you wonder how much of this is us as human beings, the commonality that we share over distance and millennia, and yet we can see such differences. Is part of that just the unique character of us as human beings?
How is it that those themes did find their way from one culture and time to another?
Did we carry them with us as Homo sapiens left Africa and spread and covered the earth?
I suppose one thought might be that there was a survival advantage to being able to look up. For instance, you mentioned Sirius coming up and knowing it's time to plant the crops. So if you're a culture, it wouldn't matter where or what time you were in. If that was advantageous, you survived.
Exactly.
So that would be one filter.
Reading the sky to know what's coming.
Okay, so that's advantageous from that point of view. You literally had an advantage over other cultures or peoples and other times.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great way to...
I imagine being able to tell your story within your community would be another advantage.
The storyteller.
It's the storyteller. You're able to pass the important concepts in your culture down to the next generation by pinning it in the stars and teaching it to those who are coming after you.
Exactly.
And then finally, I would imagine that there's a spiritual component for
Yes.
some peoples.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The heavens, the
Looking for
gods.
meaning.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much for that. This has been a fascinating tour across 4 different shows, something different for Astronomy for Everyone, and I've really enjoyed being a part of it.
I've enjoyed presenting it to our visitors.
Thank you so much for bringing your expertise. Your many years in this field have come across brilliantly. I appreciate that quality about you.
Glad you enjoy it, and I hope our viewers enjoy it.
So across the bottom of your screen, you'll see our email and our website URL as well. We want to be sure to say, please feel free to write to us. We are delighted to hear from you. It makes our day, and we want to share everything we know with you. So please make use of those resources. We're here for you. And last but not least, we want to welcome Steve Whitty with our What's Up in the Sky.
What's up in the night sky for December 2018? The sun rises at 7:42 and sets at 5:02 at the beginning of the month, and rises at 8:02 in the morning and sets at 5:10 p.m. by the end of the month. So the days get just a little bit shorter, even though the winter solstice is on December 21st. Twilight is an hour and 40 minutes before sunrise and an hour and 40 minutes after sunset. The moons. The moon is new on the 7th. First quarter is the 15th. It's full on the 22nd. And third quarter is the 29th. Mercury is in Libra and rises at 6:53 pretty much the entire month long. Maximum western elongation is on the 15th, and that's my choice for when Mercury is easiest to see. Venus is also in Libra, rises at 4:18 to 4:15 over the month. It doesn't change that much either. Jupiter is in Scorpius, moving to Ophiuchus, and rises at 7:23 a.m. to 5:57 a.m. over the month. And finally, Neptune is in Aquarius, where it basically always is, and sets at 26 minutes after midnight to 10:26 p.m. And of course, all of this is Michigan, sort of Detroit time. Mars is in Aquarius with Neptune, but moves to Pisces and sets at 5 minutes after midnight to 11:49 over the month. Saturn is in Sagittarius and sets at 6:54 p.m. to 5:11 p.m. It is moving towards superior conjunction in April. Uranus is in Aries, moving to Pisces with Mars, and sets at 4:19 a.m. to 2:19 a.m. over the month. So there is a potentially naked eye comet this month, 46P, that's Comet Wirtanen. On December 16th, it has its closest approach to the Earth near the Pleiades, M45. It should be a great show, but remember, when it's closest to the Earth, it's moving very fast. In fact, over the course of the day, it moves the width of the full moon in about 3 hours. You could watch it move. And that is what's up in the night sky for December 2018. Remember, this show is free, but we may tax your brain.